Hey, I'm Scott Tempesta from Sailing Anarchy. I'm sitting in the Sailing Anarchy global headquarters, which basically it's my office, as you can tell. But I'm lucky enough to be joined today by Mark Reynolds. I would go through Mark's bona fides, but I don't think it's necessary. I think he won, I think like 19 gold medals and probably about 87 world championships, and it's the list is long. I won't bore you with it, and I'm sure Mark's like, yeah, I know what I've done before, but I don't think I won 19 gold medals. But okay.
Oh, we live in the world of Trump now, so I think it all sounds good.
That's right. That's right. Nothing can be fact checked here. We're just going to make it up as we go. Dude, it's good to see you. How long has it been since I've actually run into you?
You're right. It has been a while. I don't know. I don't go down to the Aqua too much anymore. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, I know. I have a friend of mine who has a Harbor 20, and my girlfriend and I love to take the thing out. It's such a simple, easy boat to sail, and I can show her the ropes, as it were, and she's been learning how to steer. And I always ask her, I go, so where's the wind coming from right now? And she goes, oh, it's coming from there. I go, okay. So if I told you to come up or to come down, which way would you go? And she'd go, this way. And I go, yes. So we really have just had a ball sailing on the thing. And so I went to go sailing last Saturday. And sure enough, Friday night, the Port of San Diego had issued no recreational boating, right? And I was kind of shocked by it, primarily because they already had a provision. The Port of San Diego had already written in a provision, or provisions, I should say, for you shouldn't go sailing with anybody unless they're a household member. If they're not, you have to maintain 6 feet of difference. If you can't do that, they would suggest you just stay home. And I'm like, okay, I got all this, I got this covered. And still, no, they want that extra step. I don't know. It seems like a bit much, but then again, maybe there's not too much that you can do during all of this. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Well, right around that same time, I don't know, it was right before or right after, there was a message, email that went out from the Commodore saying, hey, we've been noticing a lot of people, standing around in groups. Come on. So maybe, word's getting around that, people aren't following the rules, and it's time to crack down further. I don't know. That stuff doesn't really bother me too much. I think it's I don't know. Somebody said that what do they call them? The greatest generation. Basically our parents, they had to go fight in wars. All we're asked to do is stay home. I think we can probably do that for a little bit.
I know. It is funny what you mentioned about people gathering. So I saw the same thing at the yacht club, and I realized what the unifier was. It was alcohol. So it's very hard to drink 6 feet apart from somebody when, like, the bottle and the whatever mixers are right sort of there. So everybody's reaching in. Then of course you end up a little closer. And yeah, there was like one time there was like 6 people. It's like sitting in the cockpit of a boat, and I'm thinking, I don't know. So yeah, I guess that's kind of what it's come to. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about, Mark, because I really haven't gotten in touch with you about this at all. So tell me a little about the business of Quantum San Diego. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did corporate Quantum take over ownership of your franchisee or whatever franchise?
Yeah.
I suppose?
Yeah. This was a little over 3 years ago. I sold the lot to Quantum, and at the same time, it actually was much better to integrate together, because previously we were doing a lot of stuff that we could work with other lots that were owned by Quantum, but we weren't really paying much into the Quantum system. They wanted to further develop some of the areas that I hadn't really done a whole lot in. Frankly, actually, since you were with me, we really haven't had much of a local sail market, out on the bay, on the bigger boats and stuff. We've always been focused on small one design. And I needed an exit plan too at some point. And actually I'll be 65 this year, so kind of getting up there. And so about 3 years ago, yeah, they bought the business. So, and they also at the same time put me in charge of international inshore one design. So all the small one designs I've been working with. We've been doing sales. We just did some test sales for the VX1, for the Rhodes 19. We've been doing sales for actually the Vipers one we just did. But I've been doing some VX1 sales. What else? We've always been doing some fiscal stuff, but we ramped that up. J70, we've been doing some J70 R&D out of San Diego. Been doing actually mains and jibs. I've never really been a spinnaker person. You know, growing up in the Sabot and the Laser and the Snipe and the Star, you know, it doesn't give you a lot of spinnaker experience. But yeah, we've done a few. We did a VX1 spinnaker prototype, and we've been doing Thistle and a few other spinnakers. I let somebody else do the design work.
And you're building them out of your loft?
Yeah, so on some of the stuff, I work with most of the stuff. I work with George Zabo. He does the design, and then we take it to the plot. We've got a full, plotter that we can then cut all the pieces out on, but then we also have Spanish. We have a lot of designers, and so we work with some of the other designers, particularly our Spanish one with and Italian with the J70 lately. So yeah, it's been good. I really enjoy that. It's kind of got me. Our facility now is kind of more of an R&D facility rather than just production. We're still basically production when it comes to Snipe and Star, but we've started moving some of this stuff over to Sri Lanka. We just got the first couple of suits of Snipe sales from them. For some of the markets like Europe, particularly right now with the exchange rate and with duties and all that, really we can't sell sales from San Diego to especially the Snipe sales to Europe. So going through Sri Lanka takes care of a lot of those issues.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm glad to hear that. Full disclosure, I worked in Mark's loft, although I didn't work for Mark, but poor Mark. So Mark has always been not small, huge when I was there in terms of what you guys are pumping out for Starboats and that kind of stuff. But Mark's loft was Mark's loft, and they didn't really do much with big boat sales. There's been a couple of big boat sales before me, I think, salesmen before me, right, Mark? And I got hired by Sobstad, back when the loft was Sobstad, by Ed Lawrence up in Torrance. And I don't want to go too far into this, but poor Mark, here they've got their bitchin' little loft, everything's grooving. And then I get dropped in their lap. And I just remember walking in the door, and I don't know if it was you or somebody goes, "Hey, can I help you?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm Scott." And they're like, "Scott?" I go, Tempesta. Yeah. I got hired to sell big boat sales. "Oh, yeah, your desk is over there in the corner, and hey, good luck." And so poor Mark, was like, "Who is this guy?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, do I really fit in here?" And I was at your loft for a long time, and it was so, probably close to 10 years. And, it was a great experience. And one of the things I was thinking about with you, Mark, on this is, I got to, I was building up the clientele, and let's face it, at one point I had an amazing amount of market share. Yeah. But it was one of the things that was so cool about being there was not only getting to know you and Peter Jones and some of the other people there, but watching you develop your Star sales and sort of start to get, I think I got there after you won a Worlds, I think, but did I get there before your first Olympic?
Probably, it must have been 80, 84 maybe, somewhere around there. That's about right.
Yeah, that's about right. When did you win your first medal?
88.
Right, exactly. So yeah, and I was there, and it was such a thrill to watch you go and develop, and clearly you're starting to sell the sales like crazy, and you were just obviously starting to really reach your peak, and it was so bitchin' to kind of be in that atmosphere as it was happening. So one of the things I want to ask you is, when you look back on some of those days and those times, how do you reflect on that? Does that seem like a golden time of your life? Obviously it's a once in a lifetime run that you got on, right? I mean, three Olympic medals, 2 gold, 1 silver, correct? And I mean, how do you reflect on that now?
Yeah, it's you know, a lot of things. Well, everything's kind of changed over time, but it kind of fit right into that time period where all the good sailors went into sailmaking. You know, that was if you wanted to continue sailing, there wasn't such thing as pro sailing. You know, you didn't go crew for a guy on a par 40 and you know make some money or America's Cup or whatever. You know, there was everything was amateur, and so if you wanted to go sailing and make a living at the same time, you were a sailmaker. So all my contemporaries, you know, that's what you know, Kostecki and Kayard and you know, but the generation before me, even you know more so, you know, was I wouldn't say almost not that much before me, but a little bit before me, and Lowell North and you know Bruce Goldsmith and you know just all these you know guys, Dick Stearns, you know
Earl Elms.
Elms, yeah, and you know everybody. That's you know you were sailmaker. I mean, you could possibly be a boat builder too. There was a little bit of that. And I actually thought about that because I hung out a lot with Carl Eichenlob. You know, my dad actually. They were really. That's how my dad got into star sailing was with Carl. My dad Carl saw this big guy and said, "Hey, would you like to go star sailing with me?"
That's
and
great.
so I considered that. If somebody told me that the boat builder usually had a hard time getting to the regattas because it was hard to get a boat done, where a sailmaker you could usually get a sail done quickly and get to the regatta. And so I decided sailmaking was probably a little bit better way to do it. But as far as just you know getting, I mean, I wanted to go to the Olympics. I tried to go to the Olympics actually before I even went into sailmaking in the Flying Dutchman. And that was the boycotted Olympics. But you know, throughout my career, things have changed so much where today, yeah, if you were a sailmaker, you wouldn't be able to do Olympic campaign because there's not enough time or money to, you know, be able to do that. If you're doing an Olympic campaign today, you got to have a lot more money to you know, to have a coach and a coach boat and move all these things around and then have the time to, you know, be in the gym. You know, you can't be working while you're on sailing. You got to be at the gym, and that kind of thing. So things have really changed. But basically my career fit kind of right in that time period where, yeah, you know, things were starting to turn professional. And in a way that might have helped me as far as being able to go to 4 Olympics. You know, a lot of my competition, especially when it got into the 1990s, guys like Kostecki and Kayard, they actually came and did the trials. Kostecki did the 92 trials and the 96 trials. Kayard did 96 and 88 before that. The things started really changing kind of, I guess, in the late 80s with America's Cup, you know, with Kayard going to work for the Italians, that type of thing. So really, hi to Deanne.
Hi, Deanne.
Hi, how are you, Scott?
Good, how are you?
Good to see you.
I saw you try to sneak through there.
Trying to sneak through.
But anyway, I basically could continue focusing on starboat sailing while those guys went off. I did a little pro sailing, but not very much. You know, it was just a little bit here and there on the side. Where these guys were doing that full time, came back, did Olympic trials, but you know, didn't have as full a commitment as I had. And there were some advantages to being a sailmaker. I mean, I got to work with, you know, selling sails to all my competitors around the world, talking to them about what rake they were using. You know, I was really open on everything I was doing, and they would be the same. I mean, to get to talk to Bill Buchan on the phone all the time, it's a pretty big advantage. I mean, if you're, you know, not sitting at a desk as a sailmaker where, you know, Bill would call me up to order some sails, you're going to learn some stuff at the same time. So it worked out.
Well, you know, one of the things that was so fascinating, Mark, not to dwell on that because we'll move on from that, but I was always astounded at your dedication and your hard work. You know, you were a guy who I thought just had a goal in mind, and you were going to do it methodically. You were going to do a lot of testing. Like you said, you talked to customers and, you know, you got a lot of input from not only, you know, the guys you were sailing against, but of course what you were learning with each change of sail design. You're out there all the time. And I just thought frankly, I mean, of course, you've got innate talent, obviously. I mean, a lot of us have some. I obviously was born with significantly less, but I made it forward in other ways. Bullshit. But you know, your work ethic was, I think, second to none. And I think really, I mean, based upon what I could see, was that you just fucking outworked people. And I think that was a huge advantage of being a sailmaker, obviously, right? You could really, I don't know about this. So you'd make a change, you go out and look at it. I mean, you could live it and learn it. And I think you applied all of that hard work, that work ethic, that commitment. And I mean, I think the result obviously speaks for itself, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been pretty focused on stuff that I'm interested in, and I grew up around Dennis Conner. My dad crewed for Dennis in the late '60s, early '70s, and you know, then Dennis is famous for his focus. You know, I mean, that was his whole thing, is that, you know, no stone unturned. I'm going to work harder than the other guys. Matter of fact, Blackcollar made a pretty funny comment about that. It's kind of a long story, but it basically, Blackcollar, the end of the story was Blackcollar said Dennis just, you know, works too hard at it. I mean, he takes the fun out of it. You know,
That's right. I remember that. You know, and he did, because it was a serious business. You know, I just read an interview, Blue Robinson in Seahorse Magazine interviewed Tom Whitten, and they were focusing, I think, primarily on America's Cup, right? The one they lost, you know, with Liberty, and then the one they won in '87, you know, with the Stars and Stripes. And it's interesting to, you know, for Tom, just an open guy, a really smart guy, been there and done that, right? It's interesting to hear him talk about what Dennis's approach was, and what the team approach was, and very similar. I mean, you know, you lead from the top, you lead by example. And, you know, with Dennis, there was just no question about it. This is how we're going to do it. And everybody, all the guys said, yep, that's how we're going to do it. Let's do it. I thought that was fairly interesting to hear that perspective. Interesting that you grew up around Dennis and learned from Dennis. And I don't think it's any coincidence that, you know, your approach was similar to his, for sure. So in terms of the business now, so are you the operating manager out of that loft? Is that how that works?
Yeah.
Okay. And you guys have a big boat salesman, and you brought on a young buck, Andrew LaPlante, who's doing what, service, and is he doing some sales as well? What does Andrew do there?
Yeah, so he's doing racing market sales and service. And yeah, I guess actually, you know, one of his references when I first talked to him was you. He's done some sailing with you in the past.
Yeah, he sails with me a lot, and I just love the guy, and I'm glad to see him, you know, land with you guys, and I think it's a super good fit. So now that we're seeing all of this, right, that we're all indoors, nobody's going sailing, Christ, we can't even hardly go down to our boat, and you know, the market is just, I mean, it's jammed up. I talked to Whitten about this also, and I talked to another sailmaker about it, and you know, it's like, we still have orders. They're slowing down. And now, I mean, the whole thing is like, how do you keep customers interested to the point where they still want to invest in sales for their boat or boats? I mean, isn't that really the big question now?
We were having, I think we were having our best sales quarter yet. You know, things were really cranking. I mean, I'm not talking San Diego, I'm talking the whole quantum organization. And so now, yeah, I mean, we're trying to connect up with customers. You know, we've been video conferencing with customers. We've been doing, you know, Facebook Live. Andrew's done 2 Facebook Lives, actually, one last week and one the week before, on all kinds of different subjects. Andrew's was, the first one he did was just checking over your sail in the backyard. What are some of, you know, pulling it out in your grass, things that you can do at home right now, you know, to have something to do with sailing. And so we're doing, I think, probably trying to do 3 of those a week. You know, now actually it's on Facebook, YouTube, and I think one other, I can't remember what the other one is, but try to make it easy for people to tune into those. Actually, the U.S. Sailing's been doing a bunch of them. There's a lot of, trying to connect up with customers. So we're emailing and trying to, just at least have the conversation. So when things start back up, that, because what's going to happen, we feel like we're in pretty good shape for things starting back up again. We've got a good supply of fabric and, everybody's, everything's ready to go. So as soon as, things turn back on, hopefully there's a pretty good rush to get back out there and get sailing. Maybe in some ways it's a little bit like, the problem I've always compared San Diego to the Northeast is people say, oh, San Diego, you guys are probably just sailing all the time, all year round because you have great weather. We sail less than people in the Northeast because when it's seasonal, you just can't wait till that season comes and then you're going to get it all in.
Right.
For us, it's like, yeah, we can go this weekend, but let's just do it next weekend.
I know. It's really true.
Not sailing that much.
I know it is amazing. I mean, as big as our bay is,
it'll be cooped up a little bit,
Yeah, maybe it's good. Maybe we'll start to appreciate it a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's funny. I was talking to a neighbor actually. Of course, now all the neighbors are out, right? Before, not too many people are out. Now the kids and everybody's walking their dog and their kids, And I was talking to a neighbor who I didn't know, and so, what do you do? So I go, well, I have a sailing website, and they're like, oh wow, how do you make money off that? And I go, through advertising. That's my primary source of revenue on Sailing Anarchy. And I thought for a second, and I just kind of said, we're in the disposable income business. I mean, really and truly, all of us in the industry, that's really our area, right? It's disposable income. And if people don't have disposable income, are they going to buy the blocks and the sheets and the sails and the boat and haul the boat out and all that kind of stuff that keeps all of us employed? And that's the sketchy part. I maintain that sailing's a little bit like golf, which you're pretty familiar with. I'm not, only in this analogy. People that play golf are pretty goddamn passionate about it. I mean, they love golf, and they'll find other things to push out of the way so that they can golf, right? Sailing's a little bit like that, only obviously a ton more expensive, but people have a passion for what we do. And, depending upon people's income level, maybe they hold off with the second home, or maybe they sell the second home rather than sell the boat and, and not go racing. I mean, I think that's the one thing that we really have in our favor is people love this. Hell, why, you and I, we've been in this sport forever, and we love it. And I think our customers do. I don't have any customers anymore. Actually, I guess everybody's a customer in some way. But you want people to go, wow, this is more important than the third car, or whatever it might be. And at some point, if this continues to just get knocked down in every single way, economically specific here, some people are going to have to make serious choices about where they're going to spend what's left of their disposable income, right?
Yeah. Actually, I've been, for the last 6 months or so, I've been trying to put together a more comprehensive list of some of the sales that we have, what we call rep sales. The starred mains and chips that George and I have been using, but we've got that in all classes. And a lot of these sales are just sitting on shelves. They're still good sales that can be sold at a lot lower price. And a couple weeks ago, I started thinking about that. That's maybe something. And we've got big boat stuff too, something that might have been measured incorrectly, so it might be off a little bit here, or off a little bit there. But maybe that's a little bit of a market we can tap into where people may not have as much money to buy a new set of thistle sails, but we've got a set that's been sitting on a shelf that was only used for a few months, and maybe we can move some of that. And since we can't build anything right now, it's actually inventory that we have sitting on the shelf that is, has some value. So it's probably not a bad thing to try to see if we can sell off some of that during this period.
Hey, Mark, if you have any big boat sales that were mismeasured that probably left over from my era.
Yeah, usually those things sit around for a while. I think particularly when we changed from the English measurement to metric, we really you know, we forgot a zero here or there, and there's some sometimes the designer would catch it, like, you know, you realize the boom is drooped down about a meter too far. Oh yeah, okay, I got the wrong number on that one.
In fact, Mark, when I was there and we were doing the Genesis sales, and we had the polyester Genesis sales, which were a lot less expensive, and I sold one to a 10 meter in town, Sally, actually, CF Kohler. And I probably wasn't exactly the clearest thinking during that particular time period. And we used to fax in the orders. And I had written a 0, I don't know, a 2. They thought it was a 7 because I didn't put the little thing, make it a German 7. So I went down to deliver the boat. This might even be the sale you're talking about. I delivered the goddamn thing, and, you know, it looks pretty neat coming out of the bag, you know, at the dock, and we hoist the thing up, and starting to get pretty close to the top. It's a big mast, tall mast, but I'm like, damn, that boom is low. Like, hopefully there's enough to get up there that's going to lift this up. No, there wasn't. Fucking thing. You talk about a droopy boom, Mark. I mean, this thing, it was ridiculous. I think it came back in like maybe like a foot above the tiller. And, you know, we're all looking at it. And of course, I'm on the hot seat, right? And I'm like, well, it's kind of like a starboat, you know, where they have the oh, and nobody was buying that. And, you know, I just remember going, oh my God. So yeah, there was a couple sales that were probably mismeasured. I managed to kind of get my way out, talk my way out of almost all of those, but yeah, those were some interesting times. So now when you take a look, so it's interesting you're getting into things like J70s, and because that's obviously such a huge one design class. Have you raced in that class at all?
No, I haven't been on the boat. I've been to you know, a few regattas just to kind of see what's going on.
Yeah.
I've been working through Travis Odenbach and Scott Nixon, some of, you know, our other guys that
Sure.
are scaling all the time.
Sure. And so, you know, like you mentioned, the Quantum had a really great year. I'm assuming some of the other lofts have had good years as well. All these regattas, you know, planned, and it's interesting. And what I try not to run too much in the way of press releases or that kind of stuff, you know, but just to see one regatta after another regatta after another regatta, and all of them fairly big, just go, no, we're canceling, we're postponing. It after a while, it was like, you suddenly realize every single frigging regatta is off. And not only globally, not only nationally, but locally as well. Like, I think CRA, Cortez Racing Association, they tried to hang in there a little bit, but even they had to just eventually go, no, we got to close up. So it's such a shutdown in not just partially, but in every single way, every single aspect of sailing, let alone racing, is now just okay. And I think you, and I think myself, and I think a lot of people are going, okay, this is temporary, and it is, right? Not, I mean, this won't last forever, hopefully. You know, but it's the whole idea of a little bit about what you said, like, okay, when this pops and when this starts to, you know, open up, you know, people are going to go, oh my God, I got to get that sail ordered. So there's going to be this huge rush. I think it'll be interesting to see how people come back to the market and how the market responds in terms of, they're going to have a sudden rush of demand, I think, without a doubt. And I'm just wondering, like, as a sailmaker, so there's no way to really plan for that, is there? I mean,
well, we've been trying to, some of the customers we've been talking to, they've been putting a deposit in, so at least they've got their slot in line.
Oh, good. They're
not waiting till you know, you got a regatta in 3 weeks, and you know, you're not going to get a sale in that time period. But if you have a slot already deposited in, so we've actually reduced. Normally we take a 50% deposit. We've reduced that somewhat to, you know, make it a little bit easier, but to get your place in mind.
Yeah, well, when I was talking to Wooden about this, I had I'd done a written interview with him, and I said, "What are you guys going to do as a company? Like, how will you incentivize people to come buy your product?" I go, "You going to offer discounts, maybe some value-added things like, hey, we'll come out and coach you for a day, or we'll sail a regatta with." Like, I was just trying to think of how would North come up with ideas, and he said, we're processing all of those. We have meetings all the time. We're trying to figure out ways to do that. I don't know what their end result has been. I don't think they've done, hey, buy a sale and you get 30% off. I don't think North, and I don't think any sale maker really wants to go play the discount game. But I'm just wondering, like, on a larger perspective, certainly a company like North and Whitney, they've got to think big. And I just wonder, like, if what people will do to kind of get ahead of the curve, like, wow, I can actually order a North sale or a quantum sale or whatever. But in this case, I was talking about North, and I can get 20% off, which is sort of an unheard of discount for, most people. And in my mind, I think that makes sense. I mean, I want people coming in the door. Well, I want them virtually coming in the door. And I want their virtual money via bank transfers, et cetera. But I just think the whole idea is keep people in play, keep them interested. And, without that, I think people tend to go, oh, I don't know. They don't seem to show much interest, or, I know that I'm doing that at my end. I'm telling advertisers, now is not the time to quit. I mean, if you quit advertising, if you start to disappear, people will think you've actually disappeared. And so most advertisers get it. They're like, yeah, we're staying in the game. I'll incentivize people. I'll throw some discounts together, some packages for them. But, I want builders and sale makers and riggers and all these people to stay involved, because when this does go, I want people to go, oh yeah, those guys were there and they offered this tip and they had this suggestion and they had this discount. And I think as an industry, I think we're seeing that to some degree. I don't know what somebody like J-Boats does. I mean, I just don't know. If you're thinking about you probably can't walk out the door at a J dealership unless it's a J70 without spending $100,000, right? And if you were planning on it, I'll bet you're not following through with it at this point. And I know it's depending upon people's income bracket, like we talked about earlier, right? But it just concerns me that we're going to have people fall out of this industry that through no fault of their own, right? None of us did this. But I'm hoping that people can hang in there. I don't know how long this is going to last. Through summer, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. That's really the question. At some point, do businesses just start folding up because they can no longer pay employees and keep doors open? If there's enough help from the government or whatever it is to keep people employed, or maybe at a percentage of what they were making. And talking about the discounts, I could see maybe the encouragement to do. I'm getting discount. Everybody I buy from on websites, I'm getting emails every day, 20% off at REI, 20% off at Competitive Cyclist, all these places. And but they have inventory that they can ship out too. They're trying to keep selling stuff. Salemaker right now, we don't have any. Well, I have a little bit of inventory of One Design sales and stuff like that, but we don't have for any other boat inventory sitting around. So we some cash flow needs, so maybe some discounting just to get deposits in or whatever, to get some money going, cash flow going. But otherwise, once things we're back to normal again, and we're going to have all these orders to crank out sales, you don't want to be making those at a discount too when you're maxed out. So
that's a good point.
I don't know what the best. The quantum guys are looking at all this stuff too to try to figure out. So far, everybody is still, nobody's been laid off. Here in Diego, George, Andrew, Clark, and I, there's, a lot we can do at home, talking to our customers. I've been, just kind of going through a lot of emails that actually I should have attended to, months ago, kind of cleaning up some of the, past things that hadn't gotten done. But so really we only have, Andrew spends some time on the sewing machine, can't do that with service, and Keekum, our main seamstress, she's at home and, not working.
Can't do
But
that.
so yeah, it all kind of depends on how long we can keep this going without having any manufacturing going out the door or service work going out the door.
Yeah, no, that's obviously the what you're saying is similar to what a lot of people are going through, right? Sailmakers and not. So Mark, when you remember the good old days when we used to go sailing? What kind of sailing were you doing? I mean, what is your preference for sailing? You do mostly, I know you have the PC. I know you and Deanne, I've seen you guys out before. Is that the kind of sailing that you primarily do and like to do?
A little bit of stuff here or there. We sail the PC a few times a year, try to do, opening day, maybe New Year's Day, the nationals. But yeah, actually, recently, I haven't sailed the Star very much. I did the Vintage Cup, which is, it'll be at the end of September this year.
Cool.
Things are back to normal. I'm definitely planning on going to that. I've been going to Nantucket Race Week, although I missed the last, actually, 2 years. We had a few other issues going on, but I did that consistently for quite a few years and plan on doing that again this summer if things are on. But I kind of got a little tired of traveling. Want to spend a little bit more time at home. So now I'm at home. I'm getting my at-home time in, so I'm kind of enjoying that. Working on the garage. But the main thing is I'm a little more focused on, instead of my sailing magazines, it's bicycling and road bike action. It's I've been doing gravel riding and road bike riding. I've got a tandem that Deanne and I ride. Last weekend I rode out what's called the Great Western Loop. It's up by up in the mountains just east of here, but I rode from here, so it was a 90-mile ride, about 5,000 feet of climbing. And matter of fact, what I'm most pissed off about right now is all the bicycle events I was planning on doing.
Yes.
I'm going to do 2 gravel races in the spring, and one of them's been moved to 4th of July weekend. But we'll see if that actually happens. But those are usually around a 60-mile race, mostly gravel, but a little bit of asphalt as well. And I do that with my son. And I'm going to do the Oregon Outback at the end of the summer, which is from California to the California border to the Washington State border. It's about 360-mile.
It's all upwind, Mark, by the way. You know that, right?
Upwind and uphill.
That's upwind. Yeah, upwind equals uphill.
Yeah, and this is all, with our sleeping bags on our bikes and tents and all that stuff. So
that's cool.
And that's something new. I haven't done that. But last summer I did a cyclocross race, and then I've been the last couple summers been doing some gravel events. So I've got quiver of bicycles now instead of quiver of boats.
It is funny how that dynamic changes, right? I think when you've been sailing X amount of years, certainly at your level, but even when I was racing a lot, it's a lot, and then I've been racing my series of anarchy boats over the last 10 or 12 years. But we went out and won virtually everything there was to win in the PHRF racing that we do in my Flying Tiger. But I'm just kind of starting to go, I don't think I need to do every race anymore. I'm not 43. I'm goddamn 63. And not that that's an excuse, but there just is certainly at the level you say, Mark, with stars and some of the more high performance boats, there are physical limitations, right, that enter into it no matter what. But it's also a little bit of a mental thing. Like, maybe I'd rather ride my bike, this weekend, or, I want to watch NASCAR Sunday morning. I don't want to go racing. And so it is a definite change. By the way, just real quickly, one of the things that has killed me during all of this is I love sports. I'm just a freak, and I don't love all sports, but I love hockey, and I like football, and I like all auto racing, F1 and NASCAR, IndyCar. But so NASCAR was the first one to go to market. They actually broadcast their races every Sunday, their regular NASCAR races. So they use iRacing on the gaming platform, and they go to the tracks that are actually the tracks that they would be racing at. Like last week, they were at Bristol, I think. And so the track recreation graphically looks just like it. It's got the right kind of surface, so the tires wear approximately like they would in real life, and the graphics are fantastic. So I've watched 2 of them now, and it's a trip because the car, it looks almost exactly like the NASCAR racing that you watch on TV. I mean, it's not much different. The angles, they've actually got the same announcers like Jeff Gordon and Mike Joy, everybody's doing this remotely, right? Everyone's at home. The NASCAR guys are on their big racing rigs, and Gordon's at home in front of his monitor. And so the whole production is just like a NASCAR race. And they have a bunch of almost all the big NASCAR guys come. And then they have some gamers, some guys who just iRace, who have never been in a car, but just do it online. And they're really, really good. So those guys get to come in and race as well. And I'll tell you, for entertainment, it's insane. It's really, really good. And they're so smart because they show it on not only Fox, but Fox Sports as well. And it is the only game in town, right? There's no baseball, there's no football, there's nothing. There's only this. And yeah, it's not the real thing, but goddamn, it's pretty close. I mean, and I watched the races, and I mean, I think it was just so smart for NASCAR to do that, because in a land where there's a lot of sports freaks and there isn't much to watch, in fact, there's nothing to watch, they kind of own it. And get this is the most amazing part. They're averaging over 1 million viewers per broadcast of a virtual game. Right. A normal NASCAR race probably gets around 3.5 million, but a third of the audience will actually come and watch this thing on TV. Pretty cool, right?
Well, with the cycling, they have Swift, which you can do in your house, mount your bike. Actually, we've got a trainer on order. We don't have it here yet, but because in a lot of places, in Spain, Italy, you can't even go out and cycle. I mean, I'm still riding, but it's a little questionable whether that should be done. If you get hurt, you take a hospital bed. There are some good arguments for not even doing that, but the virtual cycling is kind of the same type of thing. You can ride against your friends. You can ride against other people. They even have them set up. The nicer trainers will will climb. They all are set up where they're smart, so it gets tougher when you're climbing and easier when you're going downhill. But they'll even have fans that'll blow more air when you're going faster, and all kinds. So you can do it from the comfort of your home.
People will race anything. I actually put it up on my site a few weeks ago. Marble racing. Okay, it sounds like the most ridiculous thing in the world, and it kind of is, but they have an actual track where they start, and the track goes down and makes some turns, comes around a bank, and then all these marbles, they start at once, and then for whatever reason, one gets ahead and they're banging each other. They go into this bank turn, and then, they start to get in single file. Then they all get to this conveyor belt, and they all get in this conveyor belt. Conveyor belt takes to the top, then it all drops them all up at the top, and then they do it all again. And one of the anarchists on my website had done it, and he named his marble Anarchy. And so I watched it, and it was hilarious. They've got a real announcer. They've got like simulated crowd, like ooh and ah. They have actual yellow flags when marbles like crash too hard. And so it was hilarious, Mark, to hear the announcer go, and Anarchy is now in third. He's coming on pretty strong. And I'm like, my God, what kind of world do we live in, you know? And
so how about the virtual sailboat racing? Do you know anything about that? Have you looked into those? I mean, I hear, like, particularly in France, you know, there's thousands of people that are doing that.
they're huge. And, you know, what a lot of them are, because like you mentioned, France, you know, they're so into distance stuff, you know, the Vendée and all that kind of stuff. So they'll be literally racing for days. And I wanted, so in fact, I'm talking to the guys from Virtual Regatta right now. We want to have a Sailing Anarchy branded game that's just short inshore racing. I want it very, very simple. And then the race is, you know, relatively short, and you can do kind of as many as you want, and then that's kind of it. So I'm just kind of starting to jump into that a little bit. I just, you know, since a lot of us are sitting at home, I take that back. Since all of us are sitting at home, you know, I'd like to give people, you know, more of a reason to not only to come to Sailing Anarchy, but also to like, oh, that's cool. I think I'll try to play that. So I'm actually working with those guys now, but I personally haven't played. I don't play any of the games anymore. And even like this NASCAR thing, I was watching it. The guy who won the last race had the cheapest frigging console. It's the kind that you like screw down on your desktop, and he had the little wheel, and he had smaller. And he won. He won the con. He beat Kyle Busch and all these guys with their $40,000, you know, full rigs. And I'm like, I think I'll get into that. And then I like, hold up. Talk about a time suck, you know, like, great. So when I should be, you know, putting stories up or talking to people, I'm going to be spending hours like a mental patient, you know, trying to figure out why I can't make turn 3, you know, all that. So I'm like, no, I don't think I'll do that. But yes, I will watch marble racing, Mark. You bet. In fact, you know what they call it? It's a whole circuit. It's not Formula One. It's Marbula One. I kid you not. And they have these races all the freaking time. So, you know, I might have to get into that maybe. That's something. I mean, that's a level I could race at, you know. Marbles. It's hilarious. Well, listen, dude, I don't want to take up a lot more of your time. How, are you and your family doing good through all the COVID stuff?
Yeah, so we've been, you know, doing using Zoom to talk to the. We have a grandmother now up in Santa Barbara, so they can't go up and see her, but she's just, you know, she's not quite talking yet. She's almost a year and a half, but getting real close. I mean, she thinks she's talking, so it's fun. I saw her stuff a half a banana in her mouth yesterday. So that, yeah, that was neat. So, yeah, you know, everyone's doing what they can do from here. You know, Jeff, my oldest, is up in Oregon, in Eugene, and Dane is actually in Oregon now too. He's in Portland. So yeah, we just have been, you know, like I said, hooking up on Zoom. Deanne's birthday was last week, and so we had all the family and on Zoom. So
you know, it's not a bad way. And here's the good thing. If you're at your in-laws' house, you know, virtually, you can just leave anytime. You can just say, I'm out. You know, you don't have to find a reason like, oh my God, how many more hours am I going to be here? So
yeah,
20 minutes, hi everybody, bye everybody, right?
They shut down pretty quick.
I know, we do. My crew and I do this Zoom cocktail. We were doing it last few Saturday nights. And, you know, everybody shows up. There's like 8 of us or so. And, you know, everybody drinking, and it is interesting. So, you know, I tend to be the big mouth, and I kind of start to dominate a little bit. But then, you know, you find people's attention starts like, you know, they're like, all of a sudden they're like on their phone. I'm like, okay, probably time to say goodbye. So in a way, it's a blessing, and it, you know, and it's a curse. Like you can't really be there, but I can be there just enough to kind of almost be there, and then I get to leave. So listen, let's stay in touch. And sounds like you're doing great, man. I'm just so stoked to hear the loft is kind of expanding in those directions that you mentioned. That's really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun doing it because yeah, working with more people now, and you know, we've got a pretty good system going. at the loft with George doing the design work and the design program, and then sending it over to me, and I'll do a little bit of editing before we and then I'll nest all the pieces. It's like playing what's the game where all the pieces drop down?
That game.
Yeah, that game. Yeah, putting all, nesting all the pieces together, and then making a prototype sail. Yeah, it's pretty fun. I've always liked to build stuff, so it's actually gotten me back out in the loft. I mean, for a long time, I was sitting at a desk, and now
Right.
I've learned how to run the plotter, and it's been fun.
Dude, that's awesome. I was the same way. I sat at the desk. Of course, I didn't build shit. But every time I'd walk out to the loft, like there was a seamstress there and some other people like, oh, you work here still? Like, I didn't make it out there too often. But I'm glad. I mean, I think we all need stuff to get reinvigorated by, right? You were doing what you were doing for so long, and it's easy to kind of go, all right, if this is all there is, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. But you got some opportunities, and it sounds like you're seizing them. And dude, that's bitching. I can't wait. When we all get back to being in person, I'll stop by and say hi to everybody.
Yeah, do that.
Sounds great, Mark. Hey, listen, thanks very much. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Bye-bye.